Hey, I wanted to talk about the special project that I mentioned in the last video called Project ZomBEE. This is a project car that I got involved with Mopar Connection magazine. Mopar Connection magazine is an online digital magazine. It's the only daily magazine that you'll get information from Monday through Friday. And it also is the only one licensed by FCA. Kevin Shaw is the man who puts this magazine together, and he told me the story about how he got the licensing for the magazine. It's an interesting story. If you have time, go to his page at Mopar Connection magazine, drop him an email, maybe he'll give you a short rundown of how that happened. So this project came about, I found Mopar Connection online through Facebook, and I got on their email list. And one of the posts that they put on Facebook a couple years back was about Project ZomBEE and what was going on with the car. They were going to do this car themselves, and it turned out to be a little bit more involved than what they had imagined from the beginning. So Kevin put out some feelers to find out from the readers what they thought they should do with the car, and or if there was anyone who wanted to take on the project. It kind of piqued my interest, so I got a hold of Kevin, and he just happened to call me when I was out at SEMA back in 2018, and we talked about the project some, and it didn't sound like it was anything out of the ordinary from what I've done in the past. He was a little unsure whether or not the car had moved from when they started doing work on it. And I said, well, the worst we can do is bring it here. We'll compare it with some other vehicles, we'll take measurements, we'll find out if the car has shifted any, and if not, we can proceed forward, and I'd be willing to take on the project. So this car started out as something that they saved out of an open-sided barn in Ohio, and it looked like it had a pretty rough past. There's a lot of stuff inside that's cut out of the car that kind of makes it look like this car was used for some illegal practices. We can't verify that, but we're going to go with that. It makes for a good story. So the plans for Project ZomBEE, and we call it Project ZomBEE because it is a true Super Bee. This is a 1970 Super Bee. But, being as we're resurrecting it from the dead, thus the name ZomBEE. The car is slated to have some pretty nice drivetrain and other components put into this car that we're working with a lot of the advertisers from Mopar Connection with. We're going to have a 850 horsepower Gen 3 Hemi under the hood that's going to be backed up by a 5-speed Tremec that's coming from Silver Sport Transmissions. Suspension wise, everything coming from Hotchkiss suspension systems is going to be under this car, so she'll be able to handle like she's on a rail. Bare brakes going to make it stop on a dime. And the year one 17-inch rallies are going to give a call back to the original wheels that would have come on a car like this. Out back on the rear end, we've got a Curry Enterprises Dana 60 rear end that's going to have an Eaton TrueTrack set up in it. Painless performance wiring is going to set us up with a wiring system for the car. And Holley engine management will give us everything we need to install that Gen 3 Hemi in this car. Holley's really come up with a lot of easy components to make the Gen 3s easy to install in these older Mopars. Vintage air is going to keep us cool while we're going down the road, but probably one of the most important things that we're getting for this car is sheet metal, because she is in some bad shape. So we have got lots of sheet metal that came from Classic Muscle Metal and from AMD down in Georgia. They've been very gracious in supplying us with the sheet metal panels that we need. And while we're installing the sheet metal, we're going to be putting in U.S. Car Tools body stiffening components. We got frame rail connectors, the lower core support connector to go in. We've got the mini tub kits to put in, and the spring location kits also for this car. So this car is not only going to go fast, it's going to turn quick, and it's going to stop on a dime. But just to give an overview of why Kevin wanted to get some outside help in with this car, we're going to open up the car here. As you can see, She's pretty rusty. Now Kevin had already gone ahead and cut the floor pan out. I'm assuming it was really bad. But you can see up here too, the firewall is pretty well eaten away. So we're doing a complete floor pan, front, the small rear sections. The only pan that's going to stay is the under seat pan. It just needs a few places fixed on it, so we're going to leave that. The whole firewall will be replaced. And I've got coming from somebody I bought off online on Facebook. I've got the inner quarter panel pieces, because you can see somebody has cut the centers out on each side. And also the V-brace that goes behind the back seat from the floor to the package tray was missing. So I've got those three pieces coming used. So we're going to put all that stuff in, and like I said, we're going to have the frame connectors from US Card Tool will go in here also. And once we get all that put together, that'll make the floor in here good and solid like original again. We've got new quarters to go on. Now this is a tricky part, and this is one of the reasons why Kevin decided to go with my shop to help him out with this project. We kind of wanted to showcase how somebody in their backyard could do this much sheet metal work on a car without having fixtures and jigs and everything to mount the car to, and still have it stay square and straight without getting all cattywampus. So here I don't have any of that equipment. I take measurements on everything. I make sure things are braced up really well before I cut anything apart. And as I keep going along, I keep referring back to the measurements I took or measurements I have referenced from another known good vehicle that's not been hit, so that I can make sure that everything stays square and straight. Another hurdle we have to jump over on this car is they do not make quarter panels for the 1970 B-bodies. They make them for the 68s and the 69s, but not for the 70s. Which is, there's not a whole lot of difference between them. The biggest changes they made in 70 are the cove area in the front here is different. You've got one reverse C cove, where the 68 and 9s had the two separate coves. And on the back section, this back part of the quarter is different. On the 68 and 9s, they come back and they have a slight upward pitch to them. The 70 models, it kind of dips down and it has a much larger extension that goes on the quarter panels. So what I'm going to have to do is actually graft in the last about 4 inches off of the original quarters, and then somehow, which I haven't figured out how yet, I have to incorporate the coves in the front into the new quarter panels, and also the marker lights are different between a 68 and a 9, so they have to remain also. Now on the back side of this car, like I said, Kevin had already started doing a lot of work to the car, and he had the tail panel removed and the trunk pan out. So we had to install the trunk pan, which I've already gone ahead and done. And I had to do some repairs to the rear part of the frame rails on this car where they were rotted. I had to rebuild those. It didn't really warrant replacing the frame rails, so I just repaired what was there. New trunk pan. This is a used taillight panel because they don't reproduce this either. And I had this blasted and cleaned up, and it was actually in pretty good condition, other than a little bit of rust here. But this basically is covered by that trunk extension I was talking about. It'll come from here all the way around, and it'll cover all that up. But we'll go ahead and fix that anyhow. So we've got the trunk pan in. I've kind of got the tail panel set on it, just because I wanted to get the quarter panel height back where it needed to be. And then I welded in some braces in the trunk on the rain gutters, so that I can take this panel back off and I'll be able to get in the trunk and work still, because we've got to do the wheel tubs, the mini tub kits that we got from US Card Tool have to go in here yet. So I figure it might be easier. I can take this panel back out and I can get into the trunk to work on them better. So that's why I haven't permanently attached this yet. But I wanted to get the quarter panel height set so I can go ahead and cut the quarters open so I can get at those wheelhouses easier. It's all about bracing, measuring, and checking things as you go along, because if you just keep working and working away, there's a possibility that things could move, especially if you don't brace things up on these cars. These are unibody cars, so you got to make sure everything is still tied together in some fashion when you're doing these jobs. So we've got a lot of good things in store for this car. The hood is actually a fiberglass hood that we're going to incorporate a new Dodge Demon scoop onto. So that's going to be something different that you'll not see on any other car. Not sure yet about all the specifics on how the interior is going to be finished. There originally was, you can see this tan color, and it had the burnt orange interior in it. The burnt orange was really a nice colored interior when it came out, but I don't think we're going to stay with that because this is supposed to go into a kind of a bluish gray, a new color that's out from Dodge the last couple years. So that's what color it's going to be. If you really, there's some renderings of the car. If you go to Mopar Connection magazine.com and look up Project ZomBEE, you'll see the information of when Kevin started the car. There's a couple articles on there that I've done on some of the work that I've done already on this car. And he's got some renderings of what the car is going to look like when it's finished, plus he gives a rundown of all the specifics of how the car is going to be finished off. So this is really a special project that I wanted to get involved with. Really, in the beginning there was no time limit set on it, but with last year being such an off year, things kind of got behind, so we're going to really ramp up the work on this car this year, and hopefully by the end of this year we'll have all the metal work done. We'll have all the body stiffening kits in it. We'll have the suspension at least mocked up in it, and we'll have it as a roller, body work finished, and probably ready for paint, hopefully ready for paint by the beginning of next year. So we're going to try and move right along with this project and try and see if we can't get this thing done next year. Again, Mopar Connection magazine is where you can find out all the information on Project ZomBEE.